All right, hey guys, got Marty Boardman and Manny Romero on the call on the podcast here, and super grateful to have you guys on. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so let's start with Marty. I'm going to first ask you guys for each of your stories and how you guys got to working together, how you guys met up, and how that started to work out for your benefits. So let's start with Marty. Tell me about how you got into real estate, what got you fascinated in this business, and how you got started.
Sure. So I started out my regular career as a TV news cameraman. I worked for the CBS affiliate in Phoenix, Arizona, and after about 10 years of schlepping around 100 pounds of camera gear,
oh man,
in the desert heat, I decided that I was sick of that, and I was also tired of working nights, holidays, and weekends. So I quit and got into real estate, where I now work nights, holidays, and weekends. No. So yeah, I just got sick of that job. And right around this time, I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This would have been going back to like 2001. And I got inspired and motivated to own my own business, invest in real estate, because I knew that I really didn't know how to do anything else after being in the TV news biz all those years. There really was no other skill that I had that would kind of get me out of that. So I decided to go into real estate, did it part-time for a while I worked at Channel 5 full-time, made a few bucks, proved to my wife I knew what the hell I was doing, and so she let me quit.
Yeah.
In 2003, I started full-time in real estate. Through the housing market, boom and bust. Lost my assets in 2007. In August of 2007, I lost everything, got completely wiped out. Owned about 65 houses. And even though I was buying them, I thought pretty responsibly for about 70 cents on the dollar. Of course, the market corrected itself by almost 60% here in Phoenix. So we got wiped out. We lost everything.
Yeah, that's a rough market.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's right around the time Manny and I met. After the housing market crash, we met at a real estate networking event. Initially, we were friends, just kind of crying on each other's shoulders. And eventually, as the market started to turn a little bit and we started to see things kind of turn around here in Phoenix in 2009 is when we became partners and have been working together ever since.
Okay, and let me go back to a little bit more of how you got into it. So what kind of training and what sort of exit strategies were you looking at when you first got into the business? What were you doing?
That's a great question. So like most people, I started out wholesaling. I actually, while I was still working at my TV news job, I went to a workshop in Denver, Colorado, a weekend workshop. And it was one of these events, where they put like 6 different gurus on the stage on Saturday and Sunday. So I listened to all the speakers Saturday and Sunday. I left there with about $1,200 in CD training courses. One was on foreclosures and one was on lease options. So I came back to Phoenix. I did a few lease option deals. So that was my exit strategy. And again, I made a few bucks, maybe 12, 15 grand, enough money to prove to my wife that I could do it. And then I quit. And then I decided to start wholesaling. And that's when I would door knock. Actually, I would get a list of homeowners in foreclosure, and I would just print out maps and the information about their houses. And every single weekend for almost 2 years, I would just knock on doors and talk to people about selling me their home. If they were willing to sell prior to the auction, I would get a contract signed with them, and then I'd wholesale it to a cash buyer, a fix and flip investor. And then eventually I transitioned out of that into fixing and flipping. Yep.
Yeah, that's impressive. The door knocking thing, definitely wasn't my thing. I think I tried it whenever, maybe our attorney's office knew of something that was happening and we could go by and talk to that person. But as far as getting a list and going to experience that over and over again, I'm sure you learn quite a bit about, the motivated sellers and where they're at, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the emotions that a homeowner goes through when they're in foreclosure, range from just desperation and I guess depression, all the way to just anger. I had one guy chase me off his doorstep. I used to, of course, I just quit my job at Channel 5, at the CBS station here in Phoenix. And so I was, really trying to be as conservative as possible. So my wife and I sold my ski boat and my fancy new Expedition, and I bought a little kind of beat up 95 Honda Accord because we were trying to keep our monthly expenses down as low as we could while I wasn't working. So this little 95 Honda Accord, and I pulled up to this guy's house and said, "Hey, you want to buy your house?" And he says to me, he says, "Where's your bank?" And I'm like, "Excuse me." And I could see steam starting to come out of his ears, right? He's turning red.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I said, "I'm sorry." He's like, "Where's your bank?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Well, if you can buy my house cash, let's go to your bank right now." And, I was kind of on top of it that day. So I was quick on my feet. I said, "Okay, sure. Yeah. I go to bank. I'm at Bank of America right down the street." And he goes, "Bull effing shit." He's like, "You don't have a pot to piss in." He's like, "Because if you did, you wouldn't be driving that piece of shit." And he points out to my little Honda Accord. I'm like, "Okay, I'll see you later, sir. I'm out of here." So, but it wasn't long after that experience, Danny, where I just decided I don't want to do this anymore either. I just want to fix and flip houses. I want to buy homes, remodel them, and sell them. I don't want to deal with distressed sellers anymore. I don't want to door knock. I don't want to do direct mail and bandit signs and all that crap that, the gurus teach you how to do, which, don't get me wrong, is effective, but that wasn't my thing. I'm not. And I think that's the thing. I think most people need to distinguish themselves. It's like, are you going to wholesale? Because if you're going to be a wholesaler, you got to be a really good salesman or woman, or you're going to fix and flip, which is more kind of project management, people finding, people and time management, budget, that kind of stuff. They're completely different skill sets. And I think, a lot of people are just kind of brainwashed to think if you're going to get into real estate, you've got to go into wholesaling first. And, a lot of the students in our coaching program, most of them, I would say, tried that, failed miserably. So that's what we teach them. We're like, let's work on just finding fix and flip deals. Let's not worry about this wholesaling part of the business, because they're two separate businesses, and I think are both full-time businesses in and of themselves.
Yeah, and I want to leave that as like an open loop for people listening, because I'm sure people are like, oh, okay, well, he's got some new ideas here. He didn't want to do the motivated seller route and deal with the people that are kind of ticked off. And I'm sure that, at least in my mind that was the guy that was always going to answer the door when I was door knocking. Yeah. Like I always imagined that guy would be the guy, and that's what he would say, or he would say something to just, make me go, oh crap, what am I going to say here? And I'm sure that probably, what percentage of the time did you have somebody that was that angry?
That only happened a few times. Yeah. I mean, most of the time people were they were looking for a shoulder to cry on. They were looking for a counselor, a friend. I remember one time I had a guy that I met with who we sat down at his kitchen table, and that's what we call a kitchen table closing. He sat there at his kitchen table, signed over the deed of the house to me and a contract. And I gave him a cashier's check for like $5,000. And, he said, "Hey man, you want a beer?" So I'll never forget. We sat down there together as he's selling this house to me for like, 60 cents on the dollar. And we're having a Negro Modelo beer together as we're doing this. Like he just wanted somebody to talk to. He just felt terrible about it, Yeah. So most of the time that's the kind of person that I was dealing with, but that was difficult too, because, you're trying to you're there to make money, and you're a businessman or woman, and you're I hate the idea that I was taking advantage of them, because if it wasn't me, it was going to be somebody else who's going to buy that house from them. They kind of put themselves in that difficult spot, but you still kind of have to be, empathetic, sympathetic. You got to be a good listener, and then you got to kind of carry that around with you
when you're genuine or not. When you're doing it just to have some kind of outcome. I think people can sense it and wouldn't want to have a beer with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times it's that relief of having that weight off of their shoulders. Is like all of a sudden they have hope. Like I can move on now. Maybe it's not the best situation, but at least I can just like get rid of all that negative energy and all these problems and just move on to a new chapter in my life. All right, Manny, I'm going to include you now in the conversation. Let's hear your story, how you got started, and then your view of how you guys met up, and you're going to tell us what really happened. You guys got in a fight outside of a bar, I think is what you told me earlier.
I always tell people that, like, if Marty and I, we got the perfect marriage when it comes to our partnership, because if you kind of look at our backgrounds, our parents, how we were brought up, it's like, I have Mexican background. I say, Marty is my brother from another mother, really, because like our backgrounds are so similar. And what kickstarted it also for me was reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And uh, my background before fixing and flipping was I was an outside sales rep for a company called Dunn Edwards Paints, which is similar to like a Sherwin-Williams. And, so what my role in that company is to as an outside sales rep, drum up business in the building world, like contractors, cabinet shops, and all that. So the problem, like anything, I guess when you're in the corporate world, I just started to get burned out on it. I was making good money. I had great benefits, all the perks that come, with being a sales rep with, the company car, expense account. But, working 60, 70 hours a week was just really having this toll on me. And, I didn't have any kids at the time, but I remember looking at, kind of having a reflection, moment. And I looked at all the senior sales reps that were working in our company at the time. And I saw myself like, oh, here's these guys, like all of them were like overweight. Their health was crap because they're always eating out. Their relationships with their kids were not the greatest. And I say, if I continue down this path, that's me 20 years from now. And, and so the motivation for me was to get time back. And I looked into a bunch of other businesses like franchises. Like I just wanted to do something different. And I always kept kind of circling back to real estate. And I listened, or I heard this kind of a radio ad about learn how to create freedom doing real estate investing. So I did this boot camp just like Marty did.
Who was it?
It was Robert Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Robert Allen. And again, like Marty said, the information on it was good, but I felt like it was so much information, I just didn't know where to start. And so I took the approach here in Phoenix where I started kind of attending some networking events, meeting some people that were doing it to a local RIA club. And from there, I just started kind of building contacts, knowing who Harlem lenders were, who, title companies, all that, right? It's kind of getting armed with the information. And I remember learning in there was about, the pre-foreclosures. And here in Arizona, it's pretty simple to go to the county recorder's website and kind of research who the notice of trustee sales are, and I took that approach. And like Marty, I also went door knocking. However, I speak Spanish. And with that, I felt that with that background, because, with my sales background that I had, you build an instant relationship with the Hispanic community when you can speak the language. And so when I was looking through all these notice of trustee sales, I was looking for Hispanic names, and then I was door knocking, just like Marty was door knocking as well. And I wasn't wholesaling them. What I was doing is really getting the deal so I can do the flip. And in my contacts that I made networking, I met this investor who kind of mentored me, took me under his wing. And he told me, he says, look, if you have a deal that's worthwhile, you use my resources. I got the capital. We'll split the profits 50-50. And that's how I broke into it. And at that time I felt like, oh man, like I felt I had this safety net, and I did all the work. Like the first 3 deals I did with this gentleman, I did all the work. We used his money, we used his rehab contacts, everything. And for 50%, it was worth it to me.
Oh yeah.
So I remember my very first deal that I partnered up with this guy that I did, we made like 36 grand on our first deal. So that was 15, 16 grand each. It was like, it was good. Like I was like, oh man, here we go. And so then at that point is when I started to really like, I think I can do this full time, cause I had the win, right? The evidence that I can do it. And as a sales rep, I transitioned kind of almost part-time. I kind of told my employer at the time, hey, I'm going to give you like a 6 to 8 month notice. But, they had a company car, so it kind of served me. I was kind of short timing it. I'll be honest. When you're you're going to quit, it's not like you're going to drum up new business for the company.
Right.
It's either, training somebody. And I was actually looking at, at properties on the company's car or on their time. And so eventually I transitioned into full-time, and that was in 2005. And like Marty also, rode that market where it almost seemed like everything I touched was gold. Like, you know, every deal that I did was just making money with it. And of course, when the crash came, that's when it all fell apart. You know, like, you know, Marty, I think, was at a bigger scale than I was, in the sense that I didn't have 60 some odd properties that I controlled, you know, but I did have properties I controlled to lease options. And I made a mistake just like everybody else did in that market, you know, and that mistake was over leveraging, right? I mean, we kind of knew that the market was eventually going to, I wouldn't say collapse, but just kind of either even out or taper off, but we didn't realize it was going to nosedive the way it did. And just like many people out there, we got hurt.
Yeah.
I had to file for bankruptcy. Like, I lost everything. You know, I actually ended up in a divorce, and I joke about it. I say, I remember in early 2009, I would tell my friends, like, I feel like I'm in high school right now. I go, I live with my parents, I'm broke, and I have no credit.
Yeah. That's rough.
It was like starting all over. And at the time, I took on a job at a friend's company where I was traveling the country just to make ends meet, where I was buying collectibles, scrap gold, platinum, and all that. You know, at that time, we didn't know what the real estate market was doing or what was it going to do. And so I had to make some money, and that was the best way, income wise, that I can, you know, make money while I was trying to figure things out. And all along, you know, let me backtrack. I met Marty, I think it was in 2008, like you said, at a networking event. And I think at that point it was like, you know, you realize people who are actually fixing and flipping homes, there's a small circle there. People are actually doing it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that want to crack into it, but then you end up meeting people that are actually doing it. And I think with Marty and I is that we were using each other as a resource of like, hey, you know, he would mention something like, hey, what happened on this deal? Or like, hey, how'd you end up getting out of that? You know, and we just kind of use each other as a resource. So when the market crashed in 2009, I think when I was working for this gentleman's company, when I was traveling, I would literally leave the state, you know, let's say go work in Nebraska, for example, for 3 weeks, come back for 2, and then go right back out on the road. And I was doing that. And every time I come back, I reach out to Marty, like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, what are you up to? You know, what are you doing? And yeah, he was like, yeah, well, you know, I'm just working as a project manager for this other guy. And then eventually the conversation led to, you know, yeah, man, I'm working for this investor guy, and as a project manager, and, you know, he's doing some flips way on the outskirts of Phoenix. And I asked him, like, hey, you know, I like to check out what you're doing next time I'm in town. And so when I came back into town, you know, I seen some of the projects he was doing. And I asked, right, Marty, remember, as I asked him, I was like, what's stopping you from doing this on your own, man? He goes, I don't have capital. And I said, well, let me raise some capital and let's partner up together and let's make this happen. And that's how we, middle of 2009 is how we joined forces and basically
Nice.
been at it together.
Nice. So how did you work that out together? I'll go back to Marty on this one. Marty, how did you guys put this together? How did you guys decide to start working? What responsibilities did you each have? Because I think that can, you know, I've seen people get together where they had the same abilities, and you know, it was kind of like not really necessary to partner. So I'm curious to see how you guys, because obviously it's worked out. You guys are still working together. It seems to be a very beneficial relationship. So how did you guys structure that?
So, you know, when Manny mentioned, after the housing market crash, I went to work. I met him, actually an investor, actually met him through my church. And my pastor introduced us to each other. And he'd gone through, this investor, a very similar experience that Manny and I had. However, he was fortunate in that he had kind of a seed investor that could see the big picture and could see all this new opportunity coming down the line. So he funded a bunch of his deals, and this investor was buying houses at trustee sales at the courthouse steps here in Maricopa County. And so, you know, I was kind of down on my luck, and I went to an event at our church, and afterwards I spoke to our pastor. I'm like, man, I'm really hurting for money. I lost it all. Like Manny had gone through bankruptcy. And I said, you know, I'm just trying to figure out what to do next. And he's like, oh, I've got this guy you got to meet. So he said he's an investor. He went through the same thing as you. And he's kind of picked himself up, dusted himself off, and is doing pretty well. So This guy's name was Keith, this investor. So we met up about a week later at a Starbucks, because that's where all, big real estate investment meetings take place.
Right.
And he told me that he was buying homes at the auction. And of course, at that point in time, we were like the foreclosure capital of the United States. In March of 2009, I think we foreclosed on 11,000 people in 1 month.
Wow.
In Maricopa County. So they were just, everywhere to be found. And a lot of these homes, of course, were distressed. So they needed to be fixed up and sold. So he was kind of a pioneer in this space in the foreclosure world immediately following the housing market crash, this guy. So,
and this is, this was like a situation, right, where, because people might hear that and say, oh, that's like a feast, right? Like you've got all of these foreclosures. But was this a point where the market still was declining in values? You didn't really know how low values were going to go?
Yeah, I think we probably reached the bottom. Nobody knew it at the time. You never really know, right, till about 6 months later that you were at the bottom. But they knew that, and of course, nobody could borrow any money. I mean, the only people who could get a traditional mortgage was somebody who, had a very good, stable income and could put, at least 10 to 20% down. So there just weren't a lot of home buyers out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cash buyers, because, of course, we had a lot of hedge funds come into the market around this time as well. Had a ton of Canadian home buyers come into the market looking to buy second homes for pennies on the dollar as well. Because at that time, the Canadian economy, the Canadian dollar was stronger than the US dollar. So you could get a lot more for your money here in the US. And of course, being in sunny Arizona, Canadians wanted to buy winter homes here. So it was kind of a perfect storm for fix and flip investors, because a lot of these Canadian buyers and hedge funds, they didn't want to go out and buy distressed homes. They wanted to buy remodeled homes. So a lot of the properties that he was fixing and flipping, and Manny and I subsequently started fixing and flipping, were sold to cash buyers, hedge funds, second home buyers, and a lot of first-time home buyers who could get FHA or VA financing. So that's kind of where the buyers were. But so what happened, so to answer your question, so when I first went in, when I first had this meeting with this guy, he was like, you've got a lot of good skills that we could use in our business. And he's like, right now we're fixing and flipping about 12 houses a month. But we'd like to expand to another part of the city and double that to 20. And we need a project manager. So maybe you could fill in on that role. And I'm like, listen, I'll do anything. I'm freaking burning the furniture to stay warm here, Mm-hmm. So anyway, he ended up hiring me as a project manager. And don't get me wrong, these were what we call lipstick on a pig rehabs, okay? These were newer homes on the outskirts of town, all built like 95 to 2000 or newer, stucco exteriors, tile roofs. So all we really had to do in these houses was replace the flooring, replace kitchen cabinets and countertops, and paint them, and that's it. I mean, we weren't doing additions, moving walls, tearing them down to the studs, no electrical or plumbing issues at all. We could typically turn these houses around in about a week. But
it's 11 properties per month rehabbing. If you're doing any kind of big rehab, that'd be pretty intense.
But he was averaging about $11,000 in profit per property. So, which is pretty skinny, but he was, he was moving these things in like 72 days on average, is what, from the time he bought them at the auction till the time he sold them, because he was only taking a week or two to remodel them, So, but what he did is when I first sat down to go to work for him, and he had a partner too, just like Manny and I did. So he had a business partner, and he said, Marty, he said, every fix and flip business, whether you're fixing and flipping one house at a time or 100, he said, there are 4 divisions of a fix and flip business. So he called them boxes. He said, there's 4 boxes. So he got out a piece of paper and he wrote 4 boxes on a piece of paper. And he said, you've got your acquisition box. So you've got to have somebody on your team, you or someone on your team, that's good at finding deals and getting them purchased, right, and on your books. And then he said, you've got a rehab box. The next box is the rehab box. You got to have somebody who's going to manage that rehab for you. Could be you, could be someone on your team. Mm-hmm. That your third box is your sales box, because once the house is done, you got to get it sold. Okay, so you got to have somebody that's going to be in charge of sales. And then your fourth box is capital. He's like, whether it's your own money or somebody else's, you've got to have a constant source of capital to fix and flip houses. So there's got to be somebody in that box. So when Manny and I started working together, it was very natural for us. I'm really good at acquisition. I love finding deals. I love negotiating with sellers, and I love getting the properties under contract and closed. I'm the acquisition box. Manny is the rehab box. He loves project management, hiring contractors, finding contractors, seeing the project through from the start of the rehab to the end. So that's his box. And then the sales box is also me, because I'm a licensed realtor in Arizona and Wisconsin. So when we first started working together, I was listing the houses for us to save some money. That got to be too overwhelming. So eventually I found a realtor, but the realtor and I worked together in the sales box. And then as Manny mentioned, when we first started, he was the capital box. He had investors and lenders kind of in his Rolodex. And so that's how we got started. So I handled two and he handled two. And that's pretty much how we do it. We've been doing it for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys had the split, and then you knew about the split and what responsibilities would be from the get-go. So there wasn't any kind of ambiguity or, you know, arguments about, hey, I want to do that or whatever. So yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad. And it's super simple. I love the 4-box thing and having that set up. So before we go back to Manny, I wanted to close that loop on what you had said before about really not liking to do the door knocking and the motivated seller kind of dealing with them. So what was the approach at that point? What did you switch to for acquisitions?
Well, when we first started in Phoenix, it was auctions. We were buying at trustee sales, and that was me, you know, working the list of trustee sales. And at that time, there was a new company here in Phoenix called Easy Bidder. I don't even think they're around anymore because nobody's buying houses at auction anymore. There aren't enough foreclosures to keep people, you know, busy. But at the time, there was thousands of them. So I used a service called Easy Bidder, and it was like eBay. I was online every day placing virtual bids on properties, and I had bidders that were down at the courthouse steps working for me. So that's how we first started. We decided, you know, I think we both kind of agreed we didn't want to work directly with distressed sellers anymore. So after that, after the auction opportunities started to kind of dwindle, is when we expanded. We decided, hey, let's go to Milwaukee. And we started fixing and flipping houses in Milwaukee. And we were mostly buying off the MLS because there was lots of REO inventory on the MLS we could buy that where the numbers worked. And we were working with wholesalers in Milwaukee. And they had good margins on their deals. And then we also work with realtors who would send us off-market deals. So we had no problem keeping our pipeline of distressed properties filled in Milwaukee. Of course, after doing that for a couple of years, we started to see opportunities in Phoenix for what we like to call value add fix and flips. And these would be houses, smaller homes on larger lots, because as the market and the economy started to come back, we started to see people that were living on the outskirts of the city get tired of having to make those long commutes. And a lot of these older neighborhoods and subdivisions in the heart of Phoenix and Tempe and Mesa, where we live, had older homes on larger lots. And so, and we didn't invent this strategy. I mean, there are other investors who do this, but this value add approach has been, you know, really profitable for us the last couple of years, where we go in and we'll find a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house on a small lot, make it a 3-2 or a 4-2. If it doesn't have a garage, we'll build a garage. And those are opportunities that newer investors are scared to do because they don't have the expertise or the working capital, but we're perfectly comfortable with. So that's how we keep our pipeline full in 2 different markets. And we're also now in Milwaukee, we transitioned kind of out of the traditional fix and flip. We do what we call turnkey fix and flips, where we buy them, renovate them, we lease them, and then we sell them to investors who are looking for just a stable kind of cash flow or rate of return. We're nowhere near the size of like a Memphis Invest is, or some of these other big time turnkey investment companies, but we do really well with that model as well. So now in Milwaukee, we do turnkey fix and flips. And here in Phoenix, we do value add. And we find that we don't have to do all that direct mail and guerrilla marketing stuff. We can find MLS deals, off-market deals, deals from wholesalers, and we can make the numbers work because we have a slightly different approach to the rehab itself and how we exit out of that fix and flip.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because you're changing with the times and what makes sense in the different markets, depending on what you like, right? If you're completely in, and a lot of guys are, you know, completely into this whole, you know, marketing side of the business and trying to find those great deals, and that fits and that works for them. But when you're not, you know, finding the exit strategy that makes it to where you can pay a little bit more. And you guys have been through the fire, like, you know what it's like if the market transitions. Like, I'm sure you're going to take any warning signs, with some caution to make sure that your strategies are going to be able to weather that storm. So that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you guys are creative, in these two different markets. It's really cool. Manny, let's switch back to you and let's talk about some of that rehabbing, how you're doing that, because obviously you're having to manage these rehabs in Phoenix, but then also in Milwaukee, and you can't be in two places at one time. So how are you doing that?
Well, we obviously, here in Phoenix, I've always, in working with Marty, has served as a project manager, right? And I tell people, like, from my experience of rehabbing homes all these years, I could build you a home, brand new home on a lot. And I'm not a general contractor though. So we always tell people, like, you don't need to have a license or need to know how to erect a wall or use power tools. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to have that experience. What you need to have is the knowledge of the process that it takes to rehab a home or build a home. As long as you know the process, then at that point, you can start to hire out the trades to do the work. And that's how we do it. It's like, we don't generally hire a general contractor to do the work in all our homes. What we like to do is sub them out, because that way I have control of the project and we can save more money. Because I know, when it comes to our rehabs, we buy all the material. The reality is we're just paying for labor. And so the only people we really don't, we pay labor and materials is like your HVAC guys, your electrician, your plumbers. Because obviously, hey, we don't know what type of wire they need or how much wire or how many elbows they need for the plumbing. Right. But when it comes to like a painter, guys who do the tile, stucco, all that, like, hey, we're paying for the material. So now we come from a place of, now what's the labor going to cost? And in the experience of us doing this, we know time-wise what each phase of a project takes, how long it takes, right? And then that, all these numbers help Marty out when he's on his acquisition side. Because, give you an example, our painter charges us $1.30 a square foot, and that includes material to paint a home. Our tile guy, his labor rate is $2 a square foot to install tile. If it's 12 by 24, if it's those longer plank tiles, it's $3 a square foot. So, these numbers help us when we're already, when Marty's doing his acquisitions, so we can kind of go through a home and know exactly, okay, it's going to take about this much money to rehab this home. And so with that knowledge, going into a market, a brand new market, is at that point now I came from a place, I got to find subs. I got to find the trades to do that. And what I learned from that is, like, the process is the same. Rehabbing process is the same here as it is in Milwaukee, right? The material costs are the same here as it is in Milwaukee. The only thing that changed on us was the labor rate. The labor was a little different there. And then once we figure that piece out, then we're able to kind of put those numbers together when we're acquiring a home. And so it was all this. It didn't happen overnight. It was trial by error in Milwaukee, because, we live here in Phoenix. This is our home. So, between Marty and I, we'd have to travel over there every 3 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, kind of alternate so we can have our presence known. But, like, that whole saying is, when the cat's away, the mice play, right? And so that would happen all the time. We get the guys, I had some great trades, but there was nobody there to really, really kind of crack the whip on them. And technology helped us out with that, doing a call like this, whether it's through Skype or through your FaceTime on your phone. That helped us to kind of basically tighten that up a little bit for us. And then it evolved to where now, like, we're doing so many projects, it just made it sense for us to hire a project manager there that I can manage. And so the project manager that ended up being our project manager there was one of our subs at one point that did work for us. So he kind of knew our process and what we expected. And we just kind of came up to him and say, hey, look, how about would you like to be a project manager? And we kind of outlined a compensation program that worked well for him. This guy was already getting a little older, so he didn't want to be out there working a construction job. He wanted to come from a place of being in a management position. So I taught him how I project manage and how to do that. And everything, I would have a call with him on a daily basis. I come from that mantra of, like, how much by when. That's all I care about. I don't care about the excuses. I just care about like how much are you going to do and by when is it going to get done. And so I was just kind of training him to have that mindset as well. Because on, you know, the way it would look like on Monday, we'd have our check-in, like, okay, what are we going to do for the week? What's going to get accomplished this week? Who's going to come in? How are we going to schedule it? And then on Wednesday, check in, or are we on track for that? And then on Friday, did we finish? And when not, what are we going to do on a weekend to finish it up? Because we're constantly scheduling, right? Like, you know, it's like, give you an example, like you got our demo crew that comes in the beginning, you know, that generally the demo crew takes about 2-3 days max. And then right after that, you have your rough carpenter, rough plumber, rough electric, all that coming in. And so you got to forecast all that. And so that's what I mean about the process. As long as you know the process to how the rehab works, then you can start to put your kind of the chess game, you know, the chess pieces together and knowing that, okay, 3 days from now, I got to schedule my rough guys in. After the rough, they're going to take about 5 days, and I got to get my drywallers in behind that, and then so on and so forth, right? Because if you don't keep tabs with those guys, then what happens is like that takes longer, and then now it's a domino effect. Then now it affects the drywall or the rough guy, and then it affects the painter, and it's not fair to them to have to make the phone call.
Yeah.
Hey, can you start next week? You know, the day before. And so that's, you know, I think that the key thing with rehabbing a property is being on top of your trades or your contractors and, you know, just checking in with them. In the beginning, they might think that you're micromanaging them. However, once you explain to them why you do what you do, they get it. Like, you know,
well, they're going to appreciate that much more than being told, hey, we're not ready for you. And then they've got to change their whole schedule with all the promises they made. Exactly. When they could start. Yeah.
And that's all. And that's how I back it up. It'd be like, hey, you know, Jose, my guy here, like, hey, are we still on track to finish this part, you know, by Tuesday? Yeah. Yes, we're on track. Cause you know, now I'm on the phone with, hey, we're still on track on Tuesday for you to start drywalling.
See, that's a big point. The fact that you delegated, but you didn't abdicate it, right? You didn't just say, let him take it and do whatever. You know, you stayed on him, you coached him to do the things that you need to do, but you stayed on that management of getting feedback and making sure that what was supposed to be happening was happening. Because you're right. Like if you get lax on that, all kinds of things start going wrong, and you think they're watching out for it, but they're not. And then, you know, next thing you know, you're like, oh man, what happened here? How many rehabs are you guys doing simultaneously, typically in both markets?
It's usually about 2 to 4.
2 to 4 in both combined or each one?
Yeah, we actually don't have anything going on in Phoenix right now, but usually it's between 2 and 4, a couple here, 3 or 4 there. Yep.
All right. So completely manageable. And so how much time, Manny, do you spend on the capital part of things nowadays?
You know, I was kind of fortunate enough, you know, going back when I was doing this, you know, before the crash that I established contacts, right, that were investing with us. And you know, when the market went south, they recognized that it wasn't my fault that the market went south with them. And then me being on top of the communication, they were, you know, those investors, when Marty and I got together in 2009, it wasn't hard to raise that capital because they made money with me back in the day, the glory days, we call it, right? And so once you start raising capital, it kind of snowballs. It's you know, in the beginning I was doing a lot of networking events, just getting our name out there, and I still do that. You know, occasionally here there's a couple of RIA meetings that I go. They're once a month, and you know, there's always hard money lenders there. There's always some type of funding there, and then it's just kind of, you know, just kind of getting your card out there, just networking, good old fashioned networking. You know, just you know, making the contacts, but then also people that we've dealt with in the past tell other people, and it just kind of snowballed. You know, it just happened, you know, like it wasn't that I would say that I worked really hard to raise capital. It was just more of me and Marty creating results. It helped us raise capital, you know, kind of establish a track record with us. And then, you know, we give tours, you know, I think that's huge. Like let me feel it, let me see it, let me touch it. You know, let's say, for example, you're a prospective investor and like, hey, look, you know, if you were looking to make this type of return, we can make that happen. And this is our model. This is how we can make it happen. However, let's go look at some of our projects so you can see exactly what we're doing. And, you know, we've flown people from here, from this side of the country to Milwaukee so they can actually
nice.
stuff that we're doing. And once they see it, it's just like, they get all excited about it. Cause now they're like, wow, like these guys know.
Yeah, I'm putting my money towards something that actually exists and is a physical thing I can see and touch and go inside of and all that kind of stuff. Very cool.
Yeah. We have a saying, if you have a deal, the money will find you.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds kind of, I don't know, esoteric or, you know, kind of, the universe is, going to line up or whatever it is you want to call it. But it really is true. I mean, Manny in the beginning did such a great job raising capital and kind of getting the word out. But as we've grown, and as Manny mentioned, and we've created results for people, it's money has never been an issue for us. We've never not had enough funding to do a deal. And if there's a good deal to be had, and that's the thing. I mean, people, I think, and it's the biggest mistake that new investors and even some experienced investors make. They get so focused on finding money and raising capital, and they don't even have a deal. It's like, listen, get good at finding deals first. That's what we tell our students all the time. Screw worrying about the money. And I get people email me all the time, message me on Facebook. They're like, hey, I'm finding all these great deals in my market, but I don't have the money. I'm like, that's a bunch of crap. I was like, send me the deal. What makes you think it's a deal? Prove it to me. You know, I want to see comps. I want to see the after repair value of the home with verifiable comps that I can, from your multiple listing service, not from Zillow or some other BS website. I want to see verifiable comps. Show me your rehab estimate, and then show me photos of the house so I can see what you got. And then show me what the gross margin is so I can kind of figure out.
Yeah.
And as soon as I ask for that, crickets, man. People just disappear because they have no clue what a good deal looks like. They don't know what a bad deal looks like and what a good deal looks like because they never taken the time.
Well, it turns out that it's just the financing thing is an excuse, right? To avoid the work of doing the things that scare them.
Exactly. It totally is. It completely, and you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. Because I'm like, you're asking somebody to invest or lend you $250,000, $100,000, $250,000. You think they're just going to go, oh yeah, you say it's a good deal. Yeah, sure. Here, give me your wiring instructions. I'll send you the money. No, anybody who's got that kind of money is going to want to do some homework. They're going to want to see that the numbers make sense. So that's what we drill into people's head. It's like, listen, we want you to become an expert in your market at knowing what the values are in your market, knowing how to estimate rehab costs, and how to be able to figure those two things out very quickly. So when you do have a deal, you can present it to either us or to maybe one of our lenders or investors or someone in your own network, so they can go, wow, this guy or gal's really got their act together.
Yeah.
They found a great deal. They've done all the homework. They've got everything here for me to see. I'm going to fund this deal. They may not have a lot of experience, but they found a good deal. I'm going to get behind them on this. And you'd be surprised, how many people are out there. There's more. We always say there's way more money in the world than there are deals. So if you can get good at finding deals, you're not going to have to worry about the money. You're just not.
Yeah, there's so much truth in that. And it makes you focus on the things that you should be focusing on getting in this business is working those deals, understanding what is a good deal, how to figure out how it's a good deal. And yeah, there's some cases here and there for small things that come up and make some things tricky. But when you've got people like Marty and Manny to help you out, it makes it so much easier. And I would assume you guys, when you coach students, you find that you kind of give them what they need to take off and run. And then it becomes a thing where they're just kind of coming at you guys with special situations that come up to work through. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So, we just hammer into their heads from day one. Listen, and it was funny. I had a student last week. He's like, I just was thinking about it. I don't really, he's so worried about the money. I'm like, stop worrying about that. I'm like, most people are unwilling or too lazy to take the time to become a professional, right? There are so few professional fix and flip investors in this world because they're just too lazy or they just don't want to take the time to do it. They make excuses for why they can't find the time. I'm like, think about any other business, right? What other business would you just go out and just start a bakery or start, an auto repair shop? It's like, you've got to have No bank's going to lend you money. No one's going to invest. You have to have experience as a baker or as an auto mechanic at least.
Yeah.
You know, these people think, oh, just because they own a house or they live in a house or they watched HGTV for the last 5 years straight, they're some kind of housing expert, right? And it's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's like, you know, it doesn't make you an expert. You know, and it doesn't take long. I mean, take the time, take 2-3 months, study up on your market, figure out, you know, how to determine after repair value, how to estimate rehab costs, go out and analyze 5, 6, 10 deals, right? So you feel comfortable with that. And then you can show on paper, this is a good deal, and then start to worry about the money. Because that's what Manny and I did. Starting in 2009, we first started working together. We're like, we're broke. Our credit sucks. Like, how are we going to raise money? Well, I started working with my investor friend, and we were finding deals at the auction. I mean, a lot of deals. So I would send Manny all the numbers. I go, here's the last 3 we just fixed and flipped. You know, here are the addresses. Here are the comps. Here's what we bought them for. Here's what it cost us to rehab them. And here's how much money we made. And of course, it wasn't, when I said we, it wasn't me. It was my investor buddy. But I said, these are the numbers.
Same. Yeah.
Right. I was like, here are the numbers. And Manny's like, holy crap, these are great deals. I'm like, I know. So, I mean, like within a week of him having those numbers, and then he mentioned the tour, we gave a guy, one of our first investors, a tour, and it was like we had the money in our bank account like 3 days later.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a matter of just becoming good, and it's what you should be doing anyway, getting into this business, become a professional. I like the way you guys said that.
Yeah.
And so Marty and Manny, I really appreciate you guys being on the show. We're at the time limit here, and it's super useful information. If you guys, if anybody out there listening wants to get a hold of you guys and find out more about what you guys are doing, how should they reach out to you?
They can just go to our website, fixandfliphub.com. We have actually on the homepage of our website, there's a free training, and it's right in line with everything we've been talking about today. It's a free 1-hour webinar. It's called How to Find Fix and Flip Deals No One Else is Buying in Your Real Estate Market. And we talk about these strategies that we use in our business right now today to find deals that no one else is buying. Because they either don't think the numbers work, or they just don't know how to really evaluate it the way we do and find kind of some unique strategies or exit strategies for those properties. So yeah, that's just on the homepage of our website. We also have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/fixandfliphub. And we've got a ton of free how-to videos on our YouTube channel. And we have a ton of before and after videos because we like to have a lot of fun. And I mentioned I used to be a TV news cameraman. So I still shoot and edit and produce these before and after videos. And we've got a number of them from our houses in Phoenix, our value add type fix and flips in Phoenix, and our turnkey fix and flips in Milwaukee. So
Nice.
We have a lot of fun in those. We goof around a lot and, you know, joke around, kind of like they're kind of HGTV-ish. So.
Yeah, no, well done. I've checked out a couple of them there. They are really cool. So yeah, everybody watching or listening, check that out. Marty and Manny. And I like the logo. I was just looking at your shirt there, Marty.
Oh yeah. It's the people think it looks like the Foo Fighters
really?
band logo, but
No,
yeah, it's like
I
an
like
F
it.
and an F with an H in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, Manny, do you have any parting words, any words of wisdom for the audience to close it out?
No, I just, it's just what Marty, to reiterate what Marty said is like, just get good at analyzing deals, like mastering your craft. That's what you do. Again, Marty's partnership and I can find deals too. However, he's better at that. Like, it comes more naturally to him where, with me, it comes more naturally to lead the rehab team. That's why we're a good fit for each other. And, if you're looking for partners, try to see, how you can complement each other, each other's weaknesses. So you can, coming from that place of 1 + 1 = 3, like, how can you maximize, your efforts, together. And I think Marty and I are a true testament of how we can make that work and get good at your craft. Look, analyzing deals, find the deals.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show and keep in touch.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Take care.